The chamber was too quiet. It was the kind of silence that did not feel normal. It felt heavy, like something was about to break. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with leaders from across the galaxy. Tall beings with shining armor, creatures with glowing eyes, and others with forms that humans could barely understand. They all sat in a perfect circle around a wide table made of smooth white stone. Above them, the ceiling was high and round, covered in golden designs that told stories of old victories. Soft lights glowed along the walls, but they could not warm the cold feeling in the room. Because today was not a normal meeting. Today, a human stood in the center. He stood alone on a raised platform. A beam of bright white light came down from the ceiling and covered him completely. It made him look small, but also powerful. His shadow stretched long across the red carpet below his feet. No guards stood with him. No weapons were visible. Still, no one in the room felt safe. The human did not move. He stood straight, calm, and silent. His face showed no fear. That was the problem. A low whisper moved across the chamber. Some council members leaned toward each other, speaking in quiet voices. Why is he not answering? Does he not understand the warning? Or does he not care? At the head of the council sat a tall figure, its body covered in dark metallic plates. Its eyes glowed a deep blue. It was one of the oldest and most powerful leaders in the galaxy. It slowly leaned forward. The movement alone was enough to stop every whisper in the room. "Human," the leader said. Its voice echoed, deep and sharp, like metal striking stone. "Do you understand what has been said?" The sound filled the chamber, and then faded away. All eyes turned to the human. Still, he did not answer. Seconds passed. Then more. The silence grew stronger. Some leaders began to feel uncomfortable. Others felt something worse. Fear. Because this was not how humans were supposed to act. Humans were new. Young. They had joined the galaxy only a short time ago. They were expected to follow rules, to listen, to accept the authority of the council. But this human, he stood like he belonged there. Like he feared nothing. The council leader spoke again, this time louder. "You have been given a clear choice." Its glowing eyes narrowed. "Surrender the criminals your people are hiding, accept the peace we offer, or face the consequences." A low rumble moved across the room. Some leaders nodded in agreement. Others simply watched, waiting. The human slowly lifted his head. For the first time, his face was fully visible. His eyes were calm. Too calm. There was no anger. No panic. No doubt. Just certainty. "Yes," he said. His voice was quiet. But in that silence, it sounded louder than anything else. "I understand." A small wave of relief passed through some members of the council. Maybe this would end quickly. Maybe the human would obey. That was what always happened. The weak followed the strong. That was the rule of the galaxy. But then, the human took one step forward. The sound of his foot touching the floor echoed across the chamber. And something changed. The air felt different. Heavy. Tense. The human looked around the room, meeting the eyes of leaders who ruled entire star systems. He did not look away. "We understand your warning," he said. His voice was still calm. Still controlled. But now it carried weight. Then he paused. Just for a moment. Long enough for every being in that room to focus on him. And then he spoke again. "But humans..." He stopped. A faint smile appeared on his face. Not warm. Not friendly. Cold. "Don't negotiate with killers." The words hit the chamber like an explosion. Everything broke. Voices rose at once. What did he say? "This is unacceptable." Is that a threat? Several leaders stood up. Some slammed their hands on the table. Others stared in shock. No one spoke to the council like that. No one. The leader at the head of the table rose slowly to its full height. The room fell quiet again, but this time the silence was different. It was not calm. It was dangerous. "You dare," the leader began, its voice filled with anger, "to speak such words in this chamber?" But the human did not step back. He did not lower his eyes. Instead, he raised his hand slightly. And somehow, the room grew quiet again. Even the angry leader stopped speaking. "We know what happened," the human said. His voice was still soft, but now it carried something else. "Truth. You call them criminals," he continued. "You say they attacked your fleets." He shook his head slowly. "That is not the truth." A wave of tension spread through the chamber. Some leaders shifted in their seats. Others looked away. The human turned slightly. Behind him, a faint blue light began to form. A hologram. At first it was unclear. Just shapes and shadows. Then the image sharpened. A colony. Peaceful. Small. And then, fire. Ships appeared in the sky, dark and massive. Weapons fired. Buildings exploded. People ran. The sound of chaos filled the silent room. The attackers were clear. Council ships. No one spoke. No one moved. The human looked back at them. "You expected us to believe your story," he said. "You thought we would not look deeper." His eyes hardened. "You thought we would obey." The silence returned. But now it was no longer empty. It was filled with something heavy. Something real. Fear. And the human was not finished. He took another step forward. And this time, even the strongest leaders in the galaxy felt it. Something had changed. Something they could not control. And deep inside, many of them realized the same thing. This was not a negotiation anymore. This was the beginning of something far worse. The chamber did not explode into chaos this time. It froze. Every sound stopped as the hologram burned in the center of the room. The small colony on display was no longer just an image. It felt real. The fire, the panic, the desperate movement of people trying to escape, it filled the minds of every being watching. No one spoke, because everyone understood what they were seeing. And more importantly, they understood what it meant. The human stood still under the beam of light, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. He was watching them, watching their reactions. Some council members leaned back in their seats, their faces tight with discomfort. Others looked down, avoiding the image. A few stared directly at it, unblinking, cold. One of the council members suddenly slammed a hand onto the table. "This is manipulation," the creature shouted, its voice shaking the chamber. "These images are false." The words were loud, but they did not carry power. Not anymore. The human did not even look at the one who spoke. Instead, he raised his hand slightly. The hologram changed. Now there were multiple angles, clearer views, closer details. Council ships firing first. No warning, no signal, just destruction. A low murmur spread across the room. This time, no one tried to stop it, because it was harder to deny, harder to ignore. "You can deny it," the human said quietly, "but you cannot erase it." His voice cut through the room like a blade. Sharp, clean, final. At the head of the chamber, the leading council figure slowly stood again. Its glowing blue eyes dimmed slightly, as if something inside it had shifted. "You are overstepping," it said, more controlled now but still firm. "This council maintains order in the galaxy." Its voice echoed with authority. "Sometimes, force is necessary." The human finally turned his head and looked directly at the leader. "And killing civilians is order?" he asked. The question was simple, but it hit harder than any weapon. The leader did not answer immediately. That alone was enough to change the mood in the chamber. Because the council always had answers. Always. But now, there was a pause. A long one. The human stepped forward again. The light above followed him, keeping him at the center of attention. "You labeled them criminals," he continued, "but they were defending their homes." He pointed at the hologram. "They asked for help. They asked for mercy." His voice lowered slightly. "And you answered with fire." The room felt smaller now. Tighter. Like the walls were closing in. One of the quieter council members finally spoke. Its voice was softer, uncertain. "Even if this is true, it does not change the situation." It shifted in its seat. "Those individuals attacked council forces after this event. They are still guilty under galactic law." The human nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "They fought back." He looked around the room. "And you expected them not to?" Silence again. But this silence was different. It was not forced. It was natural. Because no one had a good answer. The human took a deep breath. Then he spoke again. You made a mistake. The words were calm, but heavy. You thought humans would not notice. You thought we would trust your words without question. He shook his head slightly. That was your first mistake. A faint tension moved through the chamber. Some leaders straightened in their seats. Others watched him, more closely now.
Carefully.
You thought we were weak, he continued. That we would follow your rules without understanding them. His eyes narrowed just a little. That was your second mistake. The leader at the head of the council clenched its hands. The air around it seemed to shift. And your third mistake, the human said softly, was believing we would stay silent. The words landed, and this time, they did not fade. They stayed in the room, heavy, uncomfortable, dangerous. The hologram behind him flickered again. Now it showed something new. Human ships.
Small.
Few in number. Watching from a distance. Recording everything. The council members noticed. Of course they did. And suddenly, the situation became much worse. You were there, one of them whispered. The human nodded. We saw everything. A pause.
Then,
we gave you a chance. The leader's voice returned, sharper now. A chance, it repeated. You stand here accusing this council and you speak of giving us a chance? Its tone was rising again. Anger building. But under that anger, there was something else. Something new. Uncertainty. The human did not react to the anger. He simply answered, yes. His voice was steady. We waited. We watched. We hoped you would correct it. He looked around the chamber once more. But you didn't. Now the silence came back again. But this time, it was heavier than before. Because now the truth was clear. Not just the attack, but the cover-up, the lies, the choice to ignore it. The human lowered his hand. The hologram slowly faded away. The burning colony disappeared. The screams ended, and the chamber returned to its cold, quiet state. But nothing felt the same anymore. The illusion was broken. The council was no longer untouchable, no longer perfect, and everyone in that room knew it. The human took one final step forward. Now he stood closer to the great table than ever before, closer to the leaders who once stood above all others. And for the first time, they did not feel above him. They felt equal. Or maybe, something worse. The human looked directly at the leader. His face showed no anger, no hate, only truth, and quiet strength. You asked us to surrender them, he said. You called them criminals. A small pause. Then his voice dropped just slightly. But now you know the truth. His eyes locked onto theirs. So the real question is... Another pause. Long enough to make every heartbeat in the room feel louder. Are you still going to call them criminals? No one answered. No one moved. Because this was no longer about law, or power, or control. This was about something much bigger. And deep inside, the council realized something they had never felt before. They were losing control. And the human standing before them was only just getting started. No one answered the human's question. The chamber stayed silent. But it was not the same silence as before. This silence was heavy with pressure. It felt like the moment before a storm breaks. The leaders of the Galactic Council sat still, but their minds were racing. Some of them avoided looking at the human. Others stared at him, trying to understand what he would do next. Because now, the situation had changed. This was no longer a simple meeting. This was no longer about rules or authority. This was about control. And the council could feel it slipping. The human stood firm under the beam of light. His calm expression had not changed. But there was something deeper behind his eyes now. Something stronger. He was not here to argue. He was here to finish something. At the head of the chamber, the leading council figure slowly sat back down. Its movements were slower than before, more careful. It had lost something. Not power.
Not yet.
But certainty. You have made your point, the leader said at last. Its voice was controlled again, but quieter, colder. This council will review the evidence you have presented. A few members nodded quickly, eager to support that statement. Yes, the review is necessary. We will investigate further. We must confirm all data. Their voices overlapped, trying to regain order, trying to regain control. But the human did not react. He did not look impressed. He did not look relieved. He simply listened. And then he shook his head. No, he said. The single word cut through all the voices at once. The chamber went silent again. The leader's glowing eyes narrowed. What do you mean no? The human stepped forward. Now he was close enough that the distance between him and the council table felt almost meaningless. You don't get to review this, he said calmly. You don't get to delay it. His voice remained steady, but each word carried weight. You already made your decision. The leader leaned forward slightly. And what decision is that? It asked. The human's eyes hardened. You chose to attack. A pause. You chose to lie. Another pause. And you chose to call the victims criminals. The words landed like stones. Heavy. Unavoidable. A ripple of discomfort spread across the chamber. Some council members shifted in their seats. Others remained still, their expressions unreadable. The human looked around the room. He made sure every leader felt it, felt the truth, felt the pressure. We are not here to ask for your permission, he continued. His tone changed slightly. It became colder, stronger. We are here to make something clear. The air in the chamber seemed to tighten. Even the lights above felt dimmer. The leader at the head of the council straightened again. You are in no position to make demands, it said sharply. This council represents the balance of the entire galaxy. Its voice grew louder, trying to rebuild authority. You are one species. New. Unproven. A few members nodded again, finding comfort in those words.
Yes.
Humans were still new, still small compared to the ancient powers of the galaxy. Still, learning. But the human did not look intimidated. Not even a little. Instead, something unexpected happened. He smiled. Not the cold smile from before. Not mocking. Not angry. But confident. Completely certain. That's where you're wrong, he said. The leader's voice rose again. Explain. The human took a slow breath. Then he spoke. We are new, he admitted. Yes. We are still learning. He looked down for a moment, then back up. But we learn fast. The room grew quiet again. And we remember everything. A faint chill seemed to pass through the chamber. The human's voice dropped slightly. And what we saw, a pause. We will not forget. The leader's glowing eyes flickered. Just for a moment. But it was enough. Because the human saw it. He stepped even closer now. Close enough that there was no space left for distance. Only truth. Only tension. You asked if we understand your warning, the human said.
His voice was calm again.
Controlled. Yes. We understand it perfectly. He looked at each leader one by one, making sure they were listening, making sure they could not ignore him. You are telling us to surrender innocent people. To accept your version of justice. To trust your system. He shook his head slowly. We won't. The words were simple, but final. A wave of tension moved across the room again. This time, it was stronger. More dangerous. The leader stood up again. This time faster. Anger was no longer hidden. If you refuse, it said, its voice echoing loudly, then you accept the consequences. The words rang through the chamber like a threat. Because they were. But the human did not step back. Did not hesitate. Instead, he nodded. Yes, he said. The answer surprised them. Some leaders looked at each other, confused. Did he just accept it? The human continued. We accept the consequences. A pause. Then, but not yours. The chamber froze again. The meaning of those words spread slowly, like a shadow. The leader's voice lowered. What are you saying? The human's eyes were steady.
Clear.
Unshaken. I'm saying. He took one final step forward. Now he stood at the very edge of the council floor, face to face with power, with authority, with the beings who had ruled the galaxy for centuries.
And he did not bow.
He did not lower his gaze. He stood equal, or maybe something more. You gave us a warning, he said quietly. The room held its breath. So now, a small pause, long enough to make every second feel heavier. We are giving you one. The air in the chamber felt like it stopped moving. No one spoke. No one even shifted. Because they all knew this moment mattered. If you touch those people again, the human said slowly, if you attack another innocent world. His voice did not rise, but it became something else. Something final. We will not negotiate. A pause. We will not ask. Another pause. And then, we will act. The words echoed through the chamber. Not loud, but powerful. And when they faded, nothing replaced them. No voices. No arguments. No anger. Only silence. But this time, it was not the human creating it. It was the Council. Because for the first time in their long history, they did not know what to say. And deep inside, a new feeling began to grow. Not doubt. Not confusion. Something far more dangerous.
Fear.
Because they had just realized something they never expected. Humans were not asking for a place in the galaxy anymore. They were ready to take one. The warning ended, but its echo stayed in the chamber long after the human left. No one moved at first. The great hall of the Galactic Council, once full of noise and authority, now felt cold and uncertain. The leaders remained in their seats, staring at the empty platform where the human had stood. The beam of light above slowly faded, and with it, the last sense of control they thought they had. For the first time in centuries, the Council did not know what to do. Some of them looked toward the head leader, waiting for direction. Others avoided eye contact completely, because deep down, they all felt it. The human had not made a threat. He had made a promise. The silence broke when one of the council members spoke, its voice sharp and filled with anger. This cannot stand. Several others nodded quickly.
Yes.
If we allow this, every species will challenge us. They will see weakness. The word echoed. Weakness. It was something the council could never allow. At the center of power, weakness was more dangerous than any enemy. The leading figure slowly rose again. Its glowing blue eyes were brighter now, but not calm. There was tension behind them. This situation, it began, its voice steady but cold, must be contained. The room leaned in. We cannot allow humans to defy the authority of the council. A pause.
Then,
and we cannot allow this narrative to spread. Everyone understood what that meant. The truth. The evidence. The images of the destroyed colony. Those things could not be allowed to reach the rest of the galaxy. Because if they did, everything would change. They are still young, another leader said carefully. They do not understand the consequences of their actions. Its voice was softer, but there was a hint of fear hidden inside. Then we will make them understand, the head leader replied. The decision was forming.
Slowly,
but clearly. We issue a final command, it continued. Human forces will withdraw from all disputed regions. They will surrender the individuals in question. And they will accept council authority. The room remained silent, because everyone knew what came next. And if they refuse, one member asked quietly. The leader did not hesitate. Then we respond. No one asked what that meant. They already knew.
Force.
The same force they had used before. The same force that created the problem. The same mistake. But this time, it would be worse. Much worse. Far from the council chamber, in the quiet darkness of space, human ships moved silently. They did not rush. They did not send signals. They simply moved. Across distant star systems, fleets were preparing. Not in panic. Not in fear. But with calm precision. On Earth, deep within a secure command center, human leaders stood around a glowing table. Holograms of star systems and fleet movements floated in the air. The same human who had stood in the council chamber was now there. Watching. Waiting. They will attack, one officer said.
Her voice was firm. Certain.
The human nodded slightly. Yes. No surprise. No hesitation. They've already made their decision. Another officer looked at the data. Should we strike first? The room grew quiet. All eyes turned to the human. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the map, at the systems marked in red, at the colonies that had been attacked, at the fleets gathering at the edge of human space. Then he shook his head.
No.
The answer was calm. We don't start wars. A pause. Then his eyes hardened slightly. But we finish them. The room accepted that answer. Orders were given. Not loud, not rushed, but clear. Human fleets continued to move. Positioning, waiting, watching. The attack came sooner than expected. At the edge of human territory, a small colony orbited a quiet star. It was not important in terms of power. No major defenses. No large fleet. Just a peaceful settlement. Families. Workers. Children. It was an easy target. And that was exactly why the Council chose it. A message. A warning. A show of power. Council ships appeared without signal. Dark shapes cutting through space. Weapons ready. No communication. No demand. Just action. The first strike hit the outer defense ring. Explosions lit up the darkness. Panic spread across the colony. Alarm screamed.
People ran.
The same scene. The same pattern. Just like before. But this time, something was different. The colony did not fall. Not immediately. Hidden defense systems activated. Shields rose. Weapons fired back. Small but precise. Unexpected. The Council fleet paused. Just for a moment.
Confused.
Then they attacked harder. More fire. More destruction. But the colony kept resisting. Fighting back. Holding the line. And then, something else appeared. Human ships. Not many, but enough. They came out of nowhere. Silent.
Fast.
Focused. They did not waste time. They did not send warnings. They engaged. Directly. The battle changed instantly. The Council fleet was stronger in number. More experienced. But they were not prepared. Not for this. Human ships moved differently. They targeted key systems. Engines. Weapons. Command units. Each strike was clean. Precise.
Deadly.
One Council ship lost power. Then another. Then another. Confusion spread through their formation. They tried to regroup. But it was too late. The human ships did not give them time. Within minutes, the balance shifted. The Council fleet began to fall back. Not in order. Not with control. But in retreat. For the first time, they were forced to run. Back in the Council chamber, the news arrived quickly. Too quickly. The leaders watched the battle recordings in silence. The same silence as before. But heavier. Much heavier. They lost, one of them whispered. The word felt strange. Unreal. Impossible. But the evidence was clear. A small human force had stopped a Council attack. Not just stopped it. Defeated it. The leader at the head of the chamber did not speak. Did not move. But its glowing eyes dimmed again. Because now, the truth was impossible to ignore. This was not the same situation anymore. This was not a minor conflict. This was not something they could control. They had made their choice. They had ignored the warning. And now, the consequences had begun. Far away, in the quiet of human space, the same human stood watching the battle results. His face was calm, but there was no satisfaction. No pride. Only acceptance. They crossed the line, one officer said softly. The human nodded. Yes. A pause. Then he spoke again. Now it begins. The room fell silent. Because everyone understood. This was no longer about defense. This was no longer about warnings. This was war. And humanity was ready. The galaxy did not understand at first. At the edge of known space, small reports began to appear. Ships missing. Fleets delayed. Signals lost without reason. At first, the Council ignored it. They called it errors. Technical failures. Minor issues. Nothing serious. But the reports did not stop. They grew. One fleet failed to return from patrol. Then another. A supply convoy vanished without sending a single distress call. No wreckage. No survivors. Just gone. The pattern was strange. Too clean. Too precise. And slowly, a single idea began to spread. Humans. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, tension had replaced authority. The leaders no longer spoke with confidence. Their voices were quieter now, more careful. Because every new report told the same story. Something was hunting their fleets. And it was not random. It was controlled.
Planned.
One of the council members stood, its form shaking slightly. This is an act of war. No one disagreed. But no one rushed to respond either. Because deep down, they already knew that. Another leader activated a hologram in the center of the room. It showed multiple locations across the galaxy. Red markers blinked one by one. Each one was a lost fleet, a destroyed outpost, a silent station. They are targeting us, the leader said. Only us. That was the most frightening part. Human forces were not attacking everything. They were not spreading chaos. They were not destroying planets. They were choosing their targets.
Carefully.
Only council forces. Only military assets. Only those connected to the attacks. This is not war, another member whispered. This is punishment. The word stayed in the air. No one corrected it, because it felt true. Far from the council, in the deep darkness between stars, human ships moved like shadows. They did not travel in large groups. They did not show their presence. They did not announce themselves. They appeared only when needed. And when they did, it was already too late. One council battle group drifted near a quiet star system. Their mission was simple: regroup, repair, and prepare for another strike. They believed they were safe. They believed they had time. They were wrong. Without warning, their systems began to fail. Sensors went dark. Communications broke. Engines slowed. Confusion spread across the fleet. What is happening? Check the systems. Restore control. Panic replaced order. And then, human ships appeared. Not from a single direction. From everywhere.
Fast.
Silent. Precise. They did not waste time with long battles. They struck key points. Command ships were disabled first. Then weapons. Then engines. The Council fleet tried to fight back. But they could not see clearly. They could not respond fast enough. Every move they made was already expected. Every defense was already broken. Within minutes, the fleet was gone. Not destroyed completely, but left powerless. Floating. Helpless. And then the human ships left. Just as quickly as they came. No message. No signal. No warning. Back in the council chamber, fear was no longer hidden. It was clear. Visible.
Real.
They are dismantling us, one leader said, its voice low.
Piece by piece.
The head leader remained silent. Watching. Thinking. For the first time in its long existence, it did not have control over the situation. They are not attacking civilians, another member said. They are not destroying worlds.
It paused.
They are only targeting military forces. A quiet understanding spread across the room. Humans were not acting like conquerors. They were acting like judges. And that made it worse. Because it meant they believed they were right. On Earth, the command center remained calm. There was no celebration. No cheering. Only focus. The same human stood at the center, watching the reports. Fleet movements. Target confirmations. Mission results. All targets neutralized, an officer said. Minimal resistance. The human nodded. Casualties. None on our side. A small pause. Enemy forces disabled. Survivors left behind. The human looked at the screen. For a moment, his expression softened. Not with regret, but with thought. We don't destroy what we don't need to, he said quietly. The officers around him understood. This was not revenge. This was control.
Discipline. Purpose.
They attacked again, another officer added. A second colony. The human's eyes hardened. Damage. Minor. We responded in time. A long silence followed. Then, continue operations, he said. His voice was calm, but final. We warned them. No one questioned it. No one hesitated. Because they all knew the warning had been ignored. Days passed. Then weeks. The galaxy began to notice. Trade routes shifted. Neutral systems closed their borders. Rumors spread faster than facts. Human fleets can appear anywhere. They see everything. They don't miss. Fear grew, not just in the council, but everywhere, because this kind of war was different. There were no large battles, no massive invasions, no clear front lines, just silence, and then sudden action. And every time it happened, the result was the same. The council lost. Back in the chamber, the leaders gathered again. But this time, they were not discussing control. They were discussing survival. "We must respond with full force," one member said. "Gather all fleets. Strike their core systems." Another quickly shook its head. "That would be a mistake. They are waiting for that. They want us to overreact." The room fell into argument. Fear had broken unity. Different voices. Different ideas. No clear answer. The head leader finally stood. "Enough." The single word stopped everything. It looked around the chamber. At the fear. At the doubt. At the cracks forming in their power. "We underestimated them," it said slowly. No one argued. "We believed they were weak." A pause. "We were wrong." The truth was spoken. At last. But it came too late. Because far away, human fleets were still moving. Still watching. Still choosing their next targets. In the quiet darkness of space, a lone council station drifted near a distant star. Its systems were active. Its defenses ready. Its crew alert. But none of it mattered. Because they did not see what was coming. No warning. No signal. No sound. Human ships appeared once again. And just like before,
They did not speak.
they did not negotiate. They did not hesitate. They acted. And when they were gone, only silence remained. Back on Earth, the human leader stood alone for a moment, looking at the stars, thinking. Then he spoke softly, not to his officers, not to the council, but to himself. They had a choice. A pause. They still do. His eyes narrowed slightly, but not for long. And, in that moment, one truth became clear. Humans had stopped talking. And when humans stopped talking, the galaxy had no idea what would come next. The galaxy had changed. Not slowly,
Not over time.
but suddenly, like a switch had been turned. Trade routes were empty. Ships moved carefully if they moved at all. Entire systems stayed quiet, watching, waiting, afraid to make the wrong choice. Because now, everyone knew, humans were not like the others. They did not shout. They did not threaten. They did not waste time trying to prove power. They simply acted. And when they did, things ended. The Galactic Council chamber was full again. Every seat was taken. Every leader had returned. But nothing felt the same. The Grand Hall, once a symbol of control and authority, now felt heavy. The golden ceiling and tall columns no longer impressed anyone. Because fear had replaced pride. No one spoke loudly anymore. No one argued. They waited.
For him.
The same human. The same figure who had stood before them and given a warning they chose to ignore.
Now.
They were the ones waiting for his words. A soft sound echoed through the chamber. Footsteps.
Slow. Steady.
The doors opened. And he walked in. No guards. No armor. No sign of fear. Just like before. But this time, every eye followed him. Not with anger. Not with arrogance. But with something new. Respect.
And fear.
He walked to the center of the chamber and stopped under the beam of light. It turned on again, as if the room itself remembered him. For a moment no one spoke. Then the head leader stood. But even that movement felt different.
Slower.
Less certain. Human, it began. But the human raised his hand. And the leader stopped.
Just like that.
The room went silent again. The human looked around. At every face. At every leader. At the beings who once believed they controlled the galaxy. "You asked us to surrender innocent people," he said.
His voice was calm. Clear.
"You called them criminals." No one interrupted. No one denied it. Because now, they couldn't. The human continued. "We showed you the truth." A pause. "You ignored it." Another pause. You attacked again. The words were simple, but they carried everything. Every mistake, every decision, every consequence. The human took a slow breath. Then he spoke again. You were warned. The chamber felt colder. You were given a choice. Silence. You made the wrong one. The leader at the head of the council stepped forward slightly. Its voice was quieter now, not weak, but careful. What do you want? It asked. The question was direct. No pride, no anger, just need. Because for the first time, the council was asking, not demanding. The human looked at it. For a moment, his expression softened. Not with kindness, but with understanding. Then it was gone. What we want, he said slowly, is not complicated. He looked around the room again, making sure every word reached every mind. We want the attacks to stop. A pause. We want the truth to be acknowledged. Another pause. And we want those responsible. His voice lowered slightly. To face justice. The words were clear, simple, but heavy, very heavy. A ripple moved through the chamber. Some leaders shifted in their seats. Others exchanged looks. Because this was not a demand for power, not a request for control. It was something else. Accountability. And that was far more dangerous. The head leader remained still, thinking, calculating, trying to find another way. But there was none. Because this time, the balance had changed. If we agree, the leader said slowly, will this end? The question echoed. Every being in the chamber waited for the answer. The human did not respond immediately. He looked down for a moment, then back up. Yes, he said. The word brought a small wave of relief. But it did not last. Because the human was not finished. This ends. A pause. When justice is done. The relief disappeared, replaced by reality. This was not over yet. Not until the truth was accepted. Not until actions were taken. Not until the past was answered. The human turned slightly. Behind him, a hologram appeared. This time, it did not show destruction. It showed names, ships, commanders, orders, clear evidence, clear responsibility. These are the ones who gave the commands, he said. These are the ones who chose violence. The chamber grew quiet again, because now, there was no hiding, no denial, only truth. The human stepped back slightly, giving them space, giving them a choice.
One last time.
You can fix this, he said.
His voice was calm again.
Almost gentle. Or, he paused. Just for a second. We will. No threat. No anger. Just certainty. And that was enough. Time passed. Not long, but long enough. One by one, the council leaders made their decision. Orders were sent. Commands were changed. Arrests were made. For the first time in their history, the council turned on itself. Not because it wanted to, but because it had to. Because the alternative was worse. The human stood in the chamber as the final reports came in. It is done, the head leader said quietly. Its voice carried something new. Not authority, not pride, but acceptance. The human nodded. He looked around the room one last time. Then he spoke. Remember this. The chamber listened, not as rulers, but as witnesses. Humans do not start wars. A pause. But we do not ignore injustice. Another pause. And we do not negotiate with killers. The words settled into the room.
Deep. Permanent.
A lesson. A warning. A truth. The human turned and began to walk away. No one stopped him. No one spoke. Because there was nothing left to say. And as the doors closed behind him, the galaxy understood something new. Something important. Something it would never forget. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the oldest. They were not the most advanced. But they had something no one else did. A line. A clear line. And once that line was crossed, they would not step back. They would not stay silent. And they would never, ever compromise.